week's episode of Spooky Boy and the Spirit Sisters, a paranormal podcast for the strange and unusual, by the strange and unusual. This week we've got a special episode. We're joined by the mystical mind-reading master of the Midwest, Joe Diamond.
There we go.
Thank you for joining us, Joe.
Love it. I love that intro. That's going on the new business cards. Totally.
But before we start diving into all the fun stuff, we have to remind everybody that we do have our podcast contest giveaway that we've got going on. Mm-hmm. So you have to continually be listening for our code word. And then you gather all the code words, and by episode 12, right? Is it 12?
It is 12, yes.
It's episode 12. We fucked up on that before. Episode 12, we will announce the winner who correctly unscrambles all the words and gives us the correct message. And that winner will be entered into a contest to win not only a beautiful planchette by Under the Ogham Tree. Our winner will also get to have a free tarot reading by a spirit sister of their choice. So, with that, hi, Joe. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I've been, like I said last time we chatted, I've been listening to the back episodes, and I love to be behind the scenes now. And
yeah,
like,
we're sorry. Seen a lot of
the chaos behind
the
chaos.
Oy.
The chaos of this podcast.
Yeah. This is definitely different for us being in front of a camera.
Yeah, it's our first time actually doing that.
Yeah, we're finally caught up with YouTube, which is great. It only took us fucking
a season and a half almost.
You gotta start somewhere. I got
it all uploaded in a single day. So
Yeah.
I was a little spoiled when I did my radio show because right as that was going, live streaming like Facebook Live and Periscope and all that like came about right at the time. So I got used to doing it simultaneously for the radio listeners and the online listeners. And that definitely helped with the new era of virtual shows that I'm doing for sure. That definitely helped a lot with that. But at the same time, it's one thing at a time. What matters is that you're doing it. And that's the hardest part is getting that first step down. And already like the 10th and 12th steps, like those are the easy ones. The first and the millionth, those are the hardest ones. And like, okay. I can't say it's been years since I did my radio show, but I can still at the drop of a hat, welcome to Unreal Radio, your weekly tour through, just diving right into it.
I can't even get the intro done and we're already in season 2 and it's the same damn intro every fucking episode. So
it's always
you'll get
nerves.
You'll get it down eventually, I promise.
Yeah. No.
How long did you were you a radio host? Like how long did you have your
I started in 2014 and I wrapped up right before 2018. So almost 4 years.
Okay.
I was out of WLIP in Kenosha. I do have a couple episodes. They were on YouTube, not on YouTube, on iTunes for a while. I do have my episode with Uri Geller on my YouTube channel. And I have a bunch of back catalog episodes. And I very likely will release some of them at some point or re-release them, I should say. But I have ideas for what I might want to do with it in the future, so I want to hold on to them for a little bit for right now because I have interviews with some guests that are no longer with us on this plane of existence. And so if I am to re-release those, I want to make sure it's done in the right way and right, all that. I think just throwing that one up on YouTube is not as cool as if I put it out as like a special event kind of thing. So I just need to set that aside and let that take its course in its own natural time. But it was fun. I got to interview some of my favorite authors. It was hard because like I'd agreed to do the show when we were about 3 months in, and I was coming up short on friends to talk to already. And so it was like I just looked at my bookshelf and was like, all these authors I'm sure have email addresses. So I just went through my bookcase and got to interview some of my favorite authors who are now friends. But one of my favorite authors, I told you about her last time, Varla Ventura. This is her book, Paranormal Parlor. I contributed a real life paranormal story from my life to this book. So I'm in here on page 191. And yeah, she's come to my virtual shows and everything. And we're like buds now. And it's like, and I just found her in a bookshop 12 years ago. And, you know, because she was on my radio show and podcast a bunch. Now we're buds, which is kind of cool. And yeah, and it was really fun. It just got to the point where I had been dating, who's now my wife. We had been dating for a couple of years at that point. And being in the entertainment industry, I'm always working Fridays, Saturdays, and then with the radio show, that was Sundays. And she was working Monday to Friday, standard, 9 to 5. So it was just one of those things where we never had a day off for just both of us. So it just came to one of those things where it was,
yeah, we can relate.
We can definitely relate.
So it just came down to one of those things where, you know, I've done a lot of great stuff. I can always pick it back up down the line.
Yeah.
And the radio station, I still do a lot of work with that company as well, and the people who produced it. So, I just said, hey, looking to wrap up in a couple months. And again, there are definitely days where I miss it for sure. But speaking of paranormal, they're in a gorgeous new studio in Gurney Mills now. But the old building, like at night when you're in there by yourself, it got spooky. It got creepy. It's like, I don't know if anything's here, but it was definitely didn't need to do much to get in the mood when I was broadcasting.
If there's anything here, you can just stay over there.
Yeah.
If you're here, come in. No, it's like, if you're here, come into the radio, speak into
speak. Let's talk. Let's talk right now. Let's do it.
Let's hear your story, Ghost.
Yeah, we got our own little podcast entities that like to loom around the basement here. So, if you at any point in time just see us kind of go,
it's usually
it's.
I was gonna say I've yet to encounter, but you guys are here
Lucky.
a little bit more than I am.
So like to kind of give like a visual. So we're currently like in the basement, and then like 2 floors up is my apartment. We're currently in my grandparents' house, and they're kind enough to let us turn the basement into like an actual functioning studio.
Great.
So it's the house is kind of old, not really. Like I think it was built in like the 60s, but like the land is super active. Mm-hmm. So, which I mean, when you think about it, you've got a major body of water over here, so you can only imagine like the limestone and the quartz that's underneath everything. So, and especially with like the past year, the amount of like activity that's happened in the house, like shit's up when my grandmother's like, so there,
so this door
something happened.
Yeah.
So it's but usually over in the corner yonder is where we'll be like, oh wait, there's something. Behave yourself.
What's up with ghosts hanging out in corners?
It's the same thing like we talked about in our local haunts episode.
Tell your grandparents to start rounding out the corners here.
Guys, we need to restructure this entire fucking house.
Yep.
No corners.
Yeah, no. But yeah, we've got our share of ghosts here. But let's hear some of your ghost stories.
Ooh. Where to start? Well, I won't spoil the one in the book. Again, Varla Ventura's Paranormal Parlor. It's on Amazon. I think it's only like 12.
We'll link it
bucks.
Too in our bio.
Yeah,
on our
link it.
episode
Varla's awesome. It was funny because she was in my virtual show last week, and as you know, there's a point in the show where I tell people, to get books, and she picked up her own, and I was like, okay. For everyone, just so you know, we did not set this up. You all know it's fine. but that was still kind of fun. But I won't spoil that story. So here's one that I don't get to tell too often. I was in the Maxwell Mansion in Lake Geneva for a couple of years. They just sold it. I have not met the new owners yet, but the old owner would hire me to come in on like Saturdays and do mind reading throughout the mansion. So I would, so quick background, just real quick, like elevator pitch for anyone who is still wondering, like, what the hell does Joe Diamond do? So some call me a magician, some call me a mind reader. The best way I kind of describe it is
Devil, Satan, all those
Devil,
things.
Satan, I'm 667 neighbor of the beast. As my good friend and mentor Jay Sankey used to have in his stand-up comedy act. But yeah, so the way I kind of sell it, the elevator pitch is I'm a kind of magician that specializes in mind reading and dream interpretation. So I'll get up on stage at your corporate event or sales meeting or break time. And instead of pulling a rabbit out of a hat, I'll pull thoughts out of your brains. And that's the way I kind of sell it. That's my day job. Technically, I've done a lot of different work over the years. I've done a paranormal radio show. I've done a little bit of investigation. I did the Haunted Woodstock Ghost Tour on the Woodstock Square in Woodstock, Illinois, where they filmed Groundhog Day. And I've done weekly shows at the Dole Mansion in Crystal Lake, which is also reportedly haunted. We can go through tons of stories with that. And in the weekly shows, they're limited to 13 people at a time. So everyone who comes can get their mind read and be a part of those shows. And in the last year, I've taken that online due to the pandemic and socially distancing. So I now do mind reading shows for companies and corporate events online, but I also have a weekly show where, again, 13 screens are admitted and everyone who comes gets to be a part of the show, as you all saw just this last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all that said, because I specialize in the more weirder kinds of magic, what in my industry would be considered mentalism or bizarre magic, and that's where we incorporate things like the paranormal and ghosts and fortune telling and all those kinds of things. And part of the fun of it is to blur the lines so you don't know what's real and what isn't. That said, this is a totally 100% story. I tell it as best as I can with as little theatrical embellishments as possible.
We love all that stuff.
Oh, sure, absolutely. But at the same time, well, there's a full disclosure at the end, which I'll get to in a moment. So for a couple of years, going full circle background, I was at the Maxwell Mansion. And during the pandemic last year, when it first started, the owner at the time allowed my wife and I we were just engaged at the time, but he allowed us to stay there for a couple nights for her birthday. Her birthday's in early May. We were going to do a trip. It didn't happen. So he said, come here. Which room do you want? And there was no one else in the building while we were staying there. Like, staff went home at night and everything. So we were literally the only ones there for a couple nights. It was awesome. And on the last night, she's an early bird. I'm a night owl. She went to bed. We were sleeping up in the Grant Suite up on the top floor. And I'm in the ballroom, which if you ever get a chance to go to the Maxwell Mansion, Lake Geneva, it's gorgeous. Do it. It's the last stop of the Lake Geneva Ghost Tour, actually, too, because of just the huge amount of stories there. You can find a lot of those stories. Again, I don't want to spoil it for their tour or what you can find online. I'm just going to tell you what happened to me. I am in the ballroom, which is right above the speakeasy. I'll say this much. Down where the speakeasy is where Dr. Maxwell did a lot of experimental surgeries in the 1800s. Yeah. And the drain down there is permanently painted red to cover up all of the blood stains. So, yeah. So I'm right over that. I don't think about it at the time. I'm just right over it. I'm reading a book. The fireplace is going.
You don't think about it. That would be the only thing I think about the whole time. I'd be anywhere in that building.
Okay, but here's the thing. Normally I'm performing there and embellishing all this for other people. We're the only ones there, and this is like a little staycation for us. So I'm, and we've been there, the only ones in the building for several days.
I'd be laying in bed and be like, this is okay. There's a bloodstained drain like 5 floors down underneath me, but this is okay.
But again, when you're there every single week for several years and now you're by So anyway, there's one other aspect of this too, which is he gave us free range to make whatever drinks we wanted at the bar with any of the ingredients that were there because he couldn't use them at the time. So it was like, all right, I'll make myself an old fashioned, all this. And so I'm sitting there, I'm reading my book. It gets to about 1:30 in the morning. I close the book up and I stand up and there's mirrors on either end of the ballroom, one over the fireplace, which is what I'm facing, and one on the other end, which I'm looking at. I stand up and I look in the mirror and there's someone standing behind me, back past my left shoulder. I freak out for a split second, but then figure, my my fiance must have come down to get a drink or get some water or see where I was, or maybe the owner came back to, make sure, did they leave the lights on or whatever? And I turn around and no one's there behind me. And I turn back and look in the mirror and no one is there. This is the full disclosure. I had 4 old fashions that night. I made them myself, and I am a lightweight. So I will leave it up to the listeners if it was the spirits or the spirits. That's what I'll leave it up to as far as that goes.
Oh,
Combo. The spirits and the spirits.
But in all seriousness, like, I love being in places that have a history, have some paranormal, like, this wasn't a conscious choice, but all the places I ended up having like a regular performance at for the last couple of years all have a really interesting and paranormal history. Mm-hmm. And that didn't really happen by design. It just kind of happened. It's like people always ask, I have a joke. Yeah, people do always ask me in my shows if I'm a medium, and it forced me to write my opening line, which is, I'm not a medium, I'm a large. And I pat my belly. And I think I have, again, I've had experience like that, but I think we all do. I don't think I have any heightened abilities or skills that anyone else would have for that. I find it very fascinating. I'm totally an armchair, paranormal investigator and all this kind of stuff. I'm just fascinated with the strange and mysterious in general. Everything from pendulum, like your show, exactly, which is what drew me to your show, of course. And yeah, so if I can be in a place where it can feel like, okay, just for example, part of the reason I keep it so light for corporate events is it's just, let alone whether or not it's hard to do something that's more like, let's just say something like pendulum work. Like, I could at a corporate table pass out pendulums, and I could maybe corporatize it like, the power of your mind. If you can think it, you can cause it to happen, and take out all of the, for lack of a better term, the spookiness and how it's used for divination, all this other stuff, and just do it as a positive mind demonstration for sure. But even in those situations, they're more skeptical and everything else. Like, why would I give myself the uphill battle of doing the harder thing to do? But if I hand 12 people who are sitting around the speakeasy at the Maxwell Mansion the original haunted key or the original front door key and talk about how the building is haunted, right, and let's see if we can get something haunted to happen. If they, we can get that key to turn in my hand or someone else's. It works on the same principles as a pendulum. But again, that's something that I just couldn't do in a boardroom, not necessarily because, the energies wouldn't be right, but also just because I need to have people in that mindset in order to do those things as well.
And I think with something like that, like, because we've done episodes about like residual energy that kind of like lingers on certain things. If you passed around a key, say to like a massive audience, like, you don't know what the audience is going on. Like, there could be someone in there that's got some deep-rooted attachments, and then you pass this key around, and then all of a sudden it's like there's an attachment on the key, and then you like pass it around to each person. So it's like, exactly. Are you picking up what's on the key, or are you picking up what number 75 has touched? Like,
yeah, exactly. And there are things that I do that work for most people, but there's also things that don't work with everyone. And even in the Zoom show that you saw, there are things that I'm picking people for more of the psychological type stuff, and there are people such as yourselves that I pick for the more intuitive type stuff. And without spoiling that too much for anyone who doesn't want to see it, but like I like, again, combining it. And one of my heroes is a mentalist by the name of Max Maven, and he often compares psychic entertainment to professional wrestling, which I also watched a fair bit as a kid of growing up. I wasn't supposed to, but like for some reason I watched it at my grandparents because they went to bed at like 5 p.m, so I could watch whatever I wanted on TV. And with wrestling, there's two ends of the spectrum of wrestling fans. There's people who are like, this is all fake. That's a blood capsule coming out of their head. Yeah. They're an actor. They're doing this. And then there's the people who are like, it's all real. He broke his arm. He hates that guy, everything else. But there's the vast majority of the people in the middle who are like, okay, I know these guys probably don't hate each other, but I don't think that the human arm can bend that way without breaking it. And I don't think you can get a blood capsule to come out of someone's head, the middle of someone's forehead. So yeah, some of this is real, some of it isn't, and I don't quite know where to put the pin down. And that's very much what I'm trying to do with my work as an entertainer. Now, yes, I have had people coming up to me saying, can you talk to my dead husband? Can you find my lost cat? All this stuff. And I try to make it very clear, like, look, I'm an entertainer. When it comes to those things, yeah, I am completely an armchair theorist when it comes to a lot of that.
Yeah.
This is creepy in the not fun way. But especially since there's updates with the case, but without going into too much detail, but a couple of years ago when a young child went missing in the Crystal Lake area, I got close to 75 Facebook messages from people asking if I sensed anything about where he was.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And let's be real. I had a hunch. All of us had a hunch.
Yeah.
And turns out, guess what? All of our hunches were right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, let's again, the case is still going on and everything. Like, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get your podcast in trouble. So that's
Please
why
don't.
yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay, let's just do this little thought experiment for a moment. Let's just say I busted out my pendulum. And the pendulum led me to those woods, which again, most of us would just guess. It was right down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And we found it in a matter of hours. Are Crystal Lake's finest just going to assume I'm psychic?
Yeah, no.
No.
Yeah, probably not. So even if I were to help, that might not look good for me.
Yeah.
And also at the same time, like, again, I'm an entertainer. I don't want to take someone's real grief and use it as I don't want to be one of those publicity hounds in that way.
Yeah.
I've done crazy shit for publicity. Yeah. There's a fine line between, like, hypnotizing a girl and putting her on display behind a window on the Woodstock Square as a real life Sleeping Beauty and helping with an active child murder investigation. Like, and then be like, by the way, I'm selling tickets. Like, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So yeah.
And I think a lot of that too is like the misunderstanding of certain things. Like, I personally am someone that's coming into terms with being like a medium in a channel. Like, when I say that immediately goes into people's mind, like, oh my God, she talks to that. Oh my God, she does that. It's like, that doesn't necessarily work like that. Like, it happens when it happens. You don't really have like control. You can't just like bring it on.
Everyone automatically thinks Ghost Whisperer or True Calling or something like that, or Supernatural. And like, and don't get me wrong, I love those shows, but they are fiction. There's a fine line, but and the way I look at it too is there's so many. I have a good friend who passed away a couple of years ago, and think of how many just Army movies there are. Mm-hmm. With just standard Army. You'd think those would be things that are easy to get right. All he would do would just bitch and moan about all the inconsistencies of movies like Apocalypse Now and everything else. Yeah. All the way up to Zero Dark 30. He's like, the raid, that was the only accurate part. Everything else, we're not buying sports cars for Saudi people. Like, that's not how it goes. But again,
like, say that Scrubs is the most like medically accurate TV show there is for any sort of doctor like show.
Yep.
Like, and Scrubs was a comedy. There's so many interactions.
More than House. By the way, if you ever watch the show House, great game to play. It's a heavy metal band game. Whenever they throw out a medical term, say, first person yell out heavy metal band name as quick as possible. Our favorites were Black Urine and Sphincter Paralysis.
Oh.
Yeah. This weekend, opening up at the rave, Black Urine opening for Sphincter Paralysis. Like, tell me that doesn't sound, you can't hear that ad in your mind right now. And
I can't now.
It's all through the TV show House. So whenever they just say something, it's like, oh, heavy metal band name. There we go. And that'll permeate your life. And cost you
Yeah.
friendships.
Sphincter paralysis permeates everybody's lives at least one time or another.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But
yeah, so I think there is just for example, too, I loved the movie Ghostbusters growing up, and you couldn't get, and they really worked hard to like have actually like decent science and research in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at it and it's like, again, proton packs, all this other stuff, like anyone who's actually done paranormal investigation, it could not be further from being a Ghostbuster. You know? So there is a lot of that. And yes, for some people, again, most people get it, but for the most part, yeah, I definitely make a point to just, what I do is for entertainment purposes only. That said, I do consider myself, we talked about this last time, Austin. I do try to see myself as a healthy skeptic, healthy, not just take in everything that everyone says as fact. Yeah. But I want to still hear the story. Like I don't, when I'm listening to a ghost story on a campfire, I'm not wondering if it's true. I'm wondering, oh my God, is the hook on my doorknob right now? Like what, that's what's happening. I can't remember. Oh, it was Francis Bacon. I believe it was Sir Francis Bacon who said, I don't believe in ghosts, but I'm afraid of them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love that. And
what's that?
Yeah. And to a large extent, my personal beliefs are, I don't care if it's ghosts, I don't care if it's our own minds doing it. To me, it's cool no matter what. I think it's fun and it's interesting. And it reminds us that the universe is still filled with mystery, despite the fact that we have touchscreen phones and we're talking to each other through the internet right now in real time from several miles away and all. Despite all that, there's more mystery now than there has ever been in all of human history. There's still depths of the oceans we haven't explored. There's still corners of the universe we haven't seen with a telescope. There's stuff going on in your basement right over in that corner that you still aren't sure about. So, and that's the big thing that I'm trying to bring people. I want to give people, like, one of my artist statements or mantra is to give people the feeling of a good ghost story or a paranormal experience, but on cue in my show with reasonably good accuracy.
Mm-hmm. Would you say it's been more of a difficulty doing your mind reading in your show via Zoom than like in person? Like,
yes is the short answer. I mean, there's nothing easy about this last year for anyone. It's been the hardest part is the sell, because with doing the in-person shows at the Dole Mansion, there's only 13 tickets a week. And just by word of mouth from people telling their friends, oh my gosh, we went to this historic building. We were on the second floor. He pulled out a Ouija board at the end. It spelled out the name I was thinking of. It was so weird. That's a good, that's word of mouth that they can tell at their girls' night the next night or at a coffee shop. And I'll usually hang out in local coffee shops and just, strike up conversations with people.
It's
or
true.
Other people. Yeah. Or other people just come over and be like, hey, you're Joe Diamond. Say to their friends, hey, he's the mind reader I told you about. And they say, bullshit, he can't read my mind. And then I read their mind and they go, oh my God, I need to come see your show. So when all of that is now gone, that whole aspect is now just reliant on, online. It's doubly hard because I can't just do it. I mean, it's hard enough to do it at the drop of a hat for a lot of people and still get them focused enough to do something. But at the same time, over Zoom, there's a lot more. I've had to use a lot more psychology stuff than intuitive stuff in the virtual show. Like with one thing we can kind of talk about, because it was the part you were involved in, which was the psychometry, where normally I take people's personal objects, hold them in my hands, and, I give a reading. And, right. Psychometry literally means soul reading. I think most people who listen to your show would know about it or have had this experience where they pick up an object and hold on to it. And it's, they get this feeling. And I do it to myself. And then I also test someone else in the audience. And we did it with Amanda in that show, and she got it spot on. And I knew that would work perfect for her and everything. We won't say exactly what it is because we want people to see it. But big surprise. I'll say this much. I have an object in an envelope, and I have someone try to describe the feelings or get off it. The envelope is not empty, and that's this week's code word, empty. Did it. And the first time I did that, it was after several months, because like when I'm doing shows, I want to make sure it's all stuff that works and that people, especially for like corporate work, because they've paid me a couple, $100, and it's like, well, I can't suck or take as much of a risk with this stuff. So it was like one night I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see if I can do psychometry over Zoom. It was like an online open mic thing. Mm-hmm. And it was people's favorite part. And I was like, well, I have a lot of intuitive people come to my show. So maybe if we do it with an object of mine. So I tried to find one that was interesting. They could get a lot of details out of that I could prove. Because I also didn't want to just like hold up my watch, have people get a bunch of impressions about it, and then I go, yes, that's right, thank you. I wanted to be able to like prove it for everyone else.
So that's
Walmart.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why it was like, because I have a lot of objects that mean a lot to me. Mm-hmm. Like I've got this pendulum here on my desk. I've got the pocket watch I use in the show. Got my tarot deck.
Have you ever just had like
I got tons of items over there too. So
have you ever had anyone in a show just be like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Well, in a couple ways. So in person, I've had the hardest part is always getting that first person up on stage, which is why the first few things in my show always use the entire audience. It was more like third or fourth in the show you saw, where I think about a memory and I project it out to everyone and see how many people pick up on it. Mm-hmm. I do that for twofold. Number one, to show that this isn't going to work 100% of the time. Number one. Number two, it builds empathy rather than standing on stage being like, I'm so great, I'm going to read your mind. And you think, no, you're not. Then that's the end of the show. But if you can kind of, if it's like, well, hey, I'm going to explain to you how this works. You try to guess what I'm thinking. We'll see how many of you pick up on it. Mm-hmm. It kind of, when I'm doing it later on, it kind of puts people in their shoes because they now know what it feels like, and they know what it feels like to get them all right. They know what it feels like to get them all wrong. I'm also silently polling the audience, because if someone isn't raising their hand or isn't even registering that they're following my instructions, I know not to bring them on stage. If I see, someone with both their hands up, smiling and laughing and looking at their friend like, I got it. I'm like, if they're reacting to this, I want them on stage when I'm doing the more in-depth stuff, because their reactions are going to be more fun for everyone as well. So because of all of that, yes, a lot of that transitioned naturally into the virtual landscape. The thing that was hard was, again, involving more of the energy work, the psychometry work into the show. Also, I do pendulum work in the show as well for people who don't have a pendulum. I encourage them to make one before the show and we use it. I don't do that in corporate shows. I usually save that for ticketed shows. And that's fun because I didn't want it just to all be on a screen too. Even people like yourselves who are super familiar with pendulums and, have experience with them, it's still always cool. And I wanted something happening in people's homes. Right. Too. Like that's the other thing too, with the last two parts of the show, with the pendulums, and then the last thing with the deck of cards. I wanted it not to just be me showing you on a screen that you were right or I was right. I wanted it to be completely 100% in their homes. Mm-hmm. So it felt like.
I botched that, by the way.
What's that?
I botched that, by the way.
That's.
I like because with me, whenever it comes to like numbers and counting, like ask them. Like you had numbers, and I'm just like.
Well, what was it?
Well, they spelled the suit, the color, the value,
and I'm like.
Yeah, like I was like, oh, that was really cool. Like you were like, oh, pick 7 cards, lay them out these certain ways, and we're doing the numbers, the smelling, like all that stuff.
You say smelling?
I said spelling.
Smelling?
Spelling, same thing.
Yeah,
synesthesia. words have smells for them. In fact, this is kind of a perfect transition. You want to do the thing with 10 cards right now?
Yeah.
All right.
While you grab those, this up too. So
yeah, exactly. There we go. No, well, I have faith in you. I have faith in you because this one's a lot simpler and quicker. This is not mind reading. It's more of a ritual, and I'll explain as we go along. So if someone's listening, if you're watching on YouTube, you can follow along with us. If someone's just listening, get 10 cards. Whether you're watching, whether you're listening, get 10 cards. This will work in your home. This is a fun little ritual you can do in your own home. They can be playing cards. They can be tarot cards. They can be Uno cards. It does not matter. They just need to be cards where the backs are all the same and the faces are all different. All right. And shuffle them up. Now, I don't know if, as you know, during the show, I have a tarot card back here on my bookshelf. It's different than the one that was in the show. Tonight it is the Magician card. While you're shuffling those 10 cards, I'm just going to talk a little bit about this. The Magician card is a big surprise. My favorite card in the Major Arcana. And this is the design from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And I love this card for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's the only card in the deck that's truly androgynous. There's some very feminine figures, there's very masculine figures, and some of them are even nude, so there's no question. However, the Magician card, it's not clear whether that figure is male or female. Right. Mm-hmm. It's not truly clear. So they're not, Pamela Coleman Smith was ahead of her time, I think. The reason, at least for me, my interpretation of that is deep down, we all wish we had more power and control over the world around us, especially after the last 11 months. And that's what the Magician card represents, having more power and control over the world around us. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use these 10 cards for a ritual to allow all of you to have more power and control over your lives as well. So shuffle your cards up once more. And Austin, while you're shuffling those up, is there anything I could know about the cards in your hand?
Anything you want to know about them?
Or is there anything I could know about them?
I mean, they're her aunt and uncle's.
That's from a wedding.
Like wedding?
Oh, sure. But no. Like I'm saying, like, could I know anything like about the order or what cards are in it?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
We haven't. Okay.
But there is. That's okay. That's okay. There is one thing that I do know. I know it about your cards. I know it about all of yours. I know about everyone listening to this after the fact or watching on YouTube. I know you have 10 of them. Duh, I asked you to get 10. Well, here's the thing. I don't even want to know that. So get rid of some. Now, don't get rid of just one. Get rid of at least 2. Make it harder on me. But at the same time, don't get rid of too many. You want at least like 4 cards left in your hand to work with. So this will be impressive. So all of you, just get rid of some cards. So, you can... And again, you're all out of frame for anyone listening. So I don't even see how many cards you got rid of. And someone listening, there's no way I can know. All of you, take a look at your bottom card and remember it. Don't try to remember each other's, just remember your own. All right? And again, everyone listening, look at your bottom card and remember it. Lock it in your mind. All right? Once you have that card locked in mind, hold the packet face down in your hands, because in a moment we're going to cast a spell. Ooh. We're going to spell the word magician, just like at the bottom of the tarot card here. So just take your top card, face down in front of you, hold it out in front of you, and say M.
M.
That's the first letter of the word magician. Now put it on bottom. Take the new top card, hold it out in front of you, and say A.
A.
Put it on bottom. Very good. Next card, next letter, G. Put it on the bottom. Take the new top card, hold it out in front of you. I. On bottom. Take the new top card, hold it out in front of you, and say C.
C.
On bottom. Next is another I.
I.
On bottom. Next is another A.
A.
On bottom. And finally N.
N.
On bottom. See, that was pretty easy, right, Lauren? That was fine. There's one other ritual we're going to do with these cards.
You underestimate me.
Okay. You'll notice the magician has one hand pointed towards the heaven, one hand pointed towards the earth. And those of you who have studied tarot knows that means as above, so below.
No.
So that's going to be, and actually she got that from the Lord's Prayer, on earth as it is in heaven, as above, so below. So we're going to cast that spell with the cards. Take the top card, hold it in front of you. Take the top card, hold it in front of you, and say as above.
As above.
And just deal it to the table in front of you. And take the new top card and move it to the bottom and say so below.
So below.
Yep. Do it again. As above.
As above.
So below.
So below.
Keep doing this until you're down to one card. As above, so below.
So
as above, so below. Keep going until you are down to one card. Don't look at it. Just hold it between your hands like this.
Below, as above. So here it is.
So here it is. Exactly. Now, say the most profound magic words you ever will.
Abracadabra.
Fuck.
That's a good one. That's a good one. It's a combination of Hebrew and Aramaic. It actually means I create as I speak. This one's even older, and I learned from my mentor. I won't bog you down with the original Aramaic. I'll just give you the English translation. Repeat after me. I give myself permission to be powerful.
I give myself permission to be powerful.
It's kind of weird to say that after the last 11 months, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's a great
that's it.
to have.
That's the ritual. We're done. You should now be magicians. You should be holding your card in your hand. Take a look.
I did it right.
Yep.
Congratulations. You are all now mystics. Now you can go forth and continue to accomplish the impossible in your life.
I'm putting this on my resume, damn it.
Do it.
Who's your reference? Joe Diamond is my reference.
Yeah, I'll take. Go ahead.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this is the going back to what we were talking about before. I love mystery. I'll be honest. I'm not even 100% sure the full mechanics about it. It is as close to a real ritual as I think, because literally, as long as people listen to it, follow the instructions, it works. And I don't need to know why it works, just like our phones. Like, I don't need to know why when I touch the screen this happens, but I know that after that, it takes money out of my bank account and DoorDash shows up. Like that's amazing.
Magic.
That's a minor miracle.
There you go,
Yeah,
Lauren.
exactly.
Give him his food.
Exactly.
What are you doing? I'm doing magic.
Yes, exactly.
Chili's
and-
here on my doorstep.
So
Arthur C. Clarke actually said any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
That's true.
And for me, magic just, whenever people say, oh, this stuff isn't real, magic isn't real, it's like, you wouldn't let someone say your love for your family isn't real. You wouldn't let someone say your love, for your friends and family and your loved ones isn't real. Like some people call it different things. Some people call it love. Some people call it Disney. But we all have it. We all have that feeling. We all have that, for lack of a better term, or, border on cheesy for a moment, but we all have that magic inside of us. We all have the ability to look at the world and be like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. I mean, Albert Einstein himself said anyone who can no longer experience mystery is as good as dead. And he was no dummy. He was willing to go, I don't know. Like, I've done all this research and hey, I still know nothing. So as long as we can, and I think that's the ultimate task of all this stuff, of what I do, what you do, is to, remind people of the bigger mysteries in life. And but one other thing too, just to point out, we do something with cards in the Zoom show, but you can verify it's completely different than what we just did.
Completely.
We're not spoiling anything in the show. That said too, real quick, I haven't told you guys this, but I took the liberty of making a special promo code just for your listeners for the virtual show. So if anyone goes to joediamondlive.com/Zoom, that's where people can see the info for my shows. And just for your listeners, if you use the promo code Spooky Spirits, all capital, all one word, Spooky Spirits before checkout, you get $15 off your ticket. So it's $10 tickets for your listeners. Feel free to pass these on to friends, family.
Awesome.
It's good as gifts too. It's good as gifts. Hey, I got you an experience that you can see in your home. So if you want to see the show at normal price, it's just $10, or you can get the premium digital bundle, which includes some interactive videos that are similar to what we just did, but also has an ebook on like NLP and psychometry. So it's a whole bunch of stuff. It's 3 different ebooks and 4 different videos. It's on a password protected site. You get access to that immediately.
Awesome.
That's normally $40, but with the code, you get it with the same amount as a regular $25 ticket, or you just get a regular ticket for just $10. One other thing too, which I'm starting to really push, when you go to checkout, it will give you the option to donate a ticket to the family of an essential worker as well. So and that said too, if anyone is an essential worker listening, or if you know someone who's an essential worker, all I need is for them to email me a picture of them in uniform and the date they want to come. It's every Friday at 8 Central, and I'm doing one on St. Patrick's Day as well. Literally, if you just send me that and the date you want to come, I don't ask you for like your badge number or anything else. Just send me a photo of you in uniform and the ticket. The answer is yes to a ticket for an essential worker. So if anyone is an essential worker, just email me. And if you want to donate a ticket for an essential worker down the line, you can do that at checkout as well.
That's awesome, Joe.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And again, use promo code Spooky Spirits. It's not okay to take risks anymore. It's not okay to say, it's not okay to change your mind. It's not okay to say to take risks as much anymore. I don't even have the same opinions from 12 months ago, let alone 12 years ago. Like seriously, like we should be allowed to change our minds, and this should be more allowed and encouraged.
I agree
with you on that.
Like, I think, if anything, personally, something that great came from, like, the pandemic. Like, I was able to dive more into the spooky and paranormal and witchy aspect of who I am, and I finally fucking decided that this is who I am. Like, after years and years of just, like, burying it and being like, no, this is fine, like I do this on the side, like this is cool. Like, I'm like, life is short. You never know what the fuck is gonna happen. Yeah. This is who I am. Like,
I went to Fox Valley Christian School at the First Baptist Church in McHenry, Illinois.
Montini, baby.
What's that?
I went to Montini.
Montini, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. They're no longer in business, probably because they're only K through 12 graduate. Me is now a paranormal mind reader. Maybe, I don't know. But I was always told, like, oh, the devil can use this as a way in, and it just made me want to do it more.
Same thing.
Yeah. And it's not even from that standpoint. It's just like so many people in that mindset that their rules make them comfortable, and ultimately magic in all kinds, whether it's mind reading like what I do, or if you watch someone on like America's Got Talent or TV or whatever, or an in-person, like the ultimate goal of it is to shake your ideas loose and make you realize, like, oh, the world isn't as cut and dry. Maybe I'm wrong about something. Maybe I haven't discovered this yet. Maybe there's this. It's about new possibilities. Yeah. And it's like some people don't want any of that. It's like, no, don't challenge this. Don't do this. Don't bring this in. Don't give me any doubts, any of that stuff. And those are the people who like need those rules, in religion the most, I find. They're the ones who are most uncomfortable with it. And it's like, oh, this is why we were burned at the stake and everything. Not because they thought we had satanic powers, but because it was like,
you're trying
and also I'm actually reading a book right now. It's really hard to find. It's called Magic and Meaning. And my one mentor who passed away, his name was Eugene Berger. He had a big white like Santa beard and he had a deep, deep voice. And he was like a religious studies professor for years before one day he woke up and said, you know what, I'm going to stop following other people's dreams and follow my own, quit his day job and became a professional magician. He performed magic with stories about like like Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and he did a card trick about the Spanish Inquisition, and he did a show in a haunted house in Evanston called Hauntings, and like all this stuff. He was literally a guru amongst other magicians. And this book he wrote with another religious professor, they're basically going back to the roots and the ideas of, shaman and medicine men and all this stuff. And the original origins of the word magic was basically someone else's religion. It was a way to separate, like, oh, we have religion, they have magic, they have divination, we have prophecy. So it's always been about, being separate. It's always been about, and it's always had magic has always had a baggage word. Like only in like the last 100 years with things like Disney and Harry Potter and all these other magical, Lord of the Rings, all these fantasy magical, worlds and forms of entertainment, it's started to lose its stigma. Ironically, the biggest place it has the most stigma in is performance magic, which is kind of fascinating. But it's always been about like, again, just separating. And Nate Staniforth wrote a book called Here is Real Magic. This is more widely available. He's awesome. He's been on TV and he tours theaters and colleges. And in his book, he talks about, it's not about being cool. Magic is all about sitting with the weird kids at lunch at their table. It's not about being cool. It's all about reaching out and going and finding the weirdness, basically. Mm-hmm. You can't be cool and be, and again, I think it's cool. I'm paraphrasing with what he's saying, but I think just like, again, from that standpoint of it's always been on the fringes. It's always been, and again, now more than ever between paranormal shows and things, again, like look at all the people who looked at Harry Potter and went, oh, divination is actually a thing. Oh, this is actually a thing. Oh, intent and all this other. Like,
I think it was a good like door opener for a lot of things.
Yeah, for a lot of people. And
as
yes.
fantasy saturated some of this shit is, it opened the doors for a lot of people. Like, for example, Charmed. The pagan and the witch community are like, oh, that's nothing like this. That's. But it still cleared, it like opened doors and windows for
it started conversations. Yeah. That's ultimately what art is about doing. It's about starting those conversations. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying there's a great line from Neil Gaiman's. I'm just throwing out all the quotes.
Fucking love Neil Gaiman.
If you haven't, have you read the comic series The Sandman?
I'm in the process of it, Joe.
Okay, great. No. When you're done, Audible, the audiobook company.
That's the one I'm reading. I have.
Oh, you're reading that.
And
okay,
I'm
great.
listening to the audio.
Oh, great. I actually, as mind-blowing and mind-bending as the comics are, personally, this is purely a personal taste. I'm not saying it for anyone else. I'm just saying it for me. I think I enjoy the audio play more personally. Because the whole point of dreams is that it's in our heads, and when it's on the page outside of us, as beautiful as it is, it still doesn't give as much for the imagination to play with. And the voice acting is, Kat Dennings' death. It's like the best cast thing in like the last 10 years. Like
phenomenal job.
Yeah, James McAvoy is Morpheus, all of it. Anyways.
I was like, they're making it a TV
series.
And I don't know why they're just not using that cast. Just use that cast. They're perfect. They're all perfect. Taron Egerton is John Constantine. Yes, please.
Listening to, was it Michael Sheen? Is he?
Yeah, Michael Sheen is Lucifer.
Oh.
Yeah.
That man can play Bowie any day.
Yeah. So anyway, line from one of those, which is, things don't need to have happened to be true. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the core of it too. And yeah, it's like, well, and like whenever someone and I get this occasionally, I'll get the occasional, heckler who's like, oh, this isn't real, or there's no scientific evidence for the paranormal. And I just want to say to those people, like, yeah, duh. If there were scientific evidence for it, it'd cease to be para and just be normal. Mm-hmm.
How much evidence has been caught, and say even 90% of it's bullshit, the other 10% is factual, you still don't have people. It doesn't matter if you don't want to believe it, you're never going to believe in it. If you don't believe in it, then do some research into what it is we're
our brains are doing.
Discover
if our brains are filling in those gaps. Like a great book, which I don't agree with totally, but it was a fascinating read, was a book called A Paranormality by Richard Wiseman. And he's an atheist and he's a psychologist. He's become more of like a pop psychologist. A couple of friends of mine who are in psychology, they don't love all of his stuff even. But at the same time, I think he's raising some cool questions. The whole idea of the book is, why do we see what's not there? He's like, here's my thesis. I believe there aren't ghosts. Well, then what is happening here? And here's what we're trying to look into. Right. And he actually does a really interesting job of breaking down like why our brains do this stuff. And it's like, yes, this is true. He doesn't just go, I don't believe in it and move on with their life, you know? Like whenever someone like says to me, oh, careful, this guy's a skeptic. It's like, no, they ain't. They just go, I don't believe in that stuff and move on. I've read more books on the paranormal than they are. Trust me. Doesn't matter if they're a skeptic or not. You know, if I sit down at that table with that person, they're about to play chess with Bobby Fischer. You know, I can't play chess to save my life, but at the same time, it's like, well, oh, okay. Like, let's talk about this. Why is that the case? Right. And the other thing that really opened my mind to this type of stuff as well is early on in my career, I learned a sideshow stunt from a sword swallower who's also a tarot card reader, Lexi. They taught me a stunt called the human blockhead. And it's not a trick. You take a 5-inch nail and hammer it straight back into your nostril. It goes straight back into your skull, into the maxillary sinus. It's like sword swallowing, but your nose. And it's not a trick. It goes in and I pull it out with pliers and everything. And it's amazing how people are like, oh, that nail collapses, right? Oh, that's a trick, right? And it's like, no, this is for real. And people are even doubting the things that are for real right in front of them. Yep. And it would just take a 30-second Google search to find out that it is real and how it works. You know, it'd take a lifetime to learn why it works, but it would take 30 seconds to figure out how it works.
Right.
And it's like, but even when people were confronted with the actual reality, they still, you know, because I always saw magic and the paranormal and psychic and all, I always saw it as separate things. Like I did palm reading as a teenager. I did card tricks, I did all this stuff. I did the sideshow stunts. And it wasn't until like my early 20s that I realized, oh, this is all meant to come from the same place. Mm-hmm. And it's meant to give everyone that feeling. And if I can blend it in an interesting way, then I can give people a really cool experience that they can't get anywhere else, that you can't get when you go to a movie theater or turn on Netflix.
Mm-hmm. We have, when I started doing the circles that I did on Wednesday night, that kind of like brought us actually to this point.
Yeah.
Like the way that I would explain it was like magic gives an explanation for where science is just catching up on. You know, when you think of stuff like chakras, like the shit's been around in the Eastern cultures and stuff like that, and it's just modern day that's finally putting like words and reasons and like things behind it to be like, well, yeah, this stuff's been around, but now we understand why. You know, we understand how it works, why it works. Like,
imagine going back in time and trying to explain to someone how a radio works. Yeah. You're speaking to one thing, it transmits your voice into the ether, goes thousands of miles and comes out the other. That would sound paranormal. That would sound supernatural. And yes, it's now, you know, we got our phones, which do way more than just that.
Even Nostradamus, you know, when in one of his things he brought up in one of his prophecies, like iron birds in the sky. People are like, what the fuck? Like iron doesn't fly. And we're like, oh, planes, helicopters. Like,
yeah, exactly. So, and like the whole idea. Like I said, with the Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. There was a Doctor Strange comic that there was something where he basically astral projects, and they do something similar in Endgame. Doctor Strange astral projects Bruce Banner out of the Hulk, and Bruce Banner's trying to figure out the science of what's going on right here. It's like, oh, well, obviously you're just using a quantum fluctuation thing, but how are you doing it without this and that? And
like every time Austin opens his mouth, and I tell him to shut it because I don't care. Yeah. He just works.
Well, Banner just says at one point, he's like, well, magic is just science we don't understand yet. And Doctor Strange just goes, no, science is magic we just don't understand yet. I was like, yes. Yes.
I stand behind that. Maybe I should stop.
Doctor Strange for the win.
I'm telling you, watch Marvel.
I have been saying this to you.
Marvel films are great.
They are.
Yep.
I'm telling you that. That's why I made you sit down and watch Doctor Strange.
I know.
I actually used that. Well, I actually used that line from Doctor Strange in my show. I say we're going to use these for a ritual or spell. If that offends your modern sensibility, you may simply call this a program. And then I just look at someone and go, I stole that from Doctor Strange. Don't tell the rest of them. that's exactly line for line what I use. I think again, even that comic storytelling, like you read those stories about, good, evil, heroes, villains, the hero's journey, all this other stuff. You don't need to believe that Luke Skywalker was a real guy in order to appreciate, well, I was going to say his story, but the first 3 movies of his story anyway, and 1 episode of The Mandalorian. And I'll just leave it at that.
No spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. No spoilers. That's been a couple months. If you don't know it by now. My wife, it's hilarious. She reads all the spoilers online for stuff. And so when we go see a movie, but here's the thing, she doesn't spoil it for anyone else. It's just for her. Like, she doesn't like to spoil things.
As long as she keeps it to herself.
She does keep it to herself. But like, I've given her so much grief when we've watched like when I turned her on to Buffy a couple of years ago. She's like,
Buffy.
oh yeah, I'm reading about what happens in season 5 and we're in season 3. It's like, no. And she's like, I don't know about Spike and Buffy being a couple. It's like, it makes sense if you watch them all in order. This is why spoilers don't work. Like,
Show them what had happened.
yes, just watch. Just watch. You'll be on Team Spike in no time, I promise.
Yeah. Oof.
Don't get Lauren started.
James Marsters.
It's all on Prime right now. You can watch all of it on Prime.
I know what date night.
I went through the entire Buffy series
I.
2.5 years ago, and then I started watching Angel, and then I was just like, I'm burned out. I can't. Like, I'm done.
Yeah, I had like a year between the 2 series. I like a lot of Angel, and I like how it just became its own show.
Yeah.
So I originally got it because my theater teacher, Jay Geller at McHenry County College, said it was the best show ever. Yeah, he's awesome. He recommended it, and it was like one of the few series of the McHenry Public Library that they had all the DVDs of. So I was like, well, okay, just start this, because it wasn't on Netflix at the time. Mm-hmm. And like I burned, like I got the whole 7th season, like at like 9 a.m. when they opened, and watched it all in 24 hours. Like, I didn't
Buffy
stop.
Or Angel?
Of Buffy, the last season of Buffy. I watched it all in a day, nonstop. I ordered a pizza. It was great. I was 19.
Yeah, I used to do that when I was going to MCC. I would have my math homework and I'd be watching Buffy. Like,
Yep.
I was going to say, if you just binge Angel, by the end of that, you were just going to be a moody little bitch by the end. Man, all that angst and brooding and internal
But then he's a wee little puppet man, so it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. But again, like that's what it's the idea is, again, it comes down to storytelling, it comes down to sharing these experiences. And again, like, I don't need to believe, I love hearing real life ghost stories, but like, they don't need to be true or to have happened in order to make the hairs on my backs of my hands stand up. Like, and even if that's the case, like, we're still having a real reaction to an unreal moment, So like, why not just focus on that aspect of it?
And that's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, it's one of those things, like, especially like growing up for me, like going to Montini, going to church, all that kind of stuff. And then like growing up in a house that's like, it's haunted, right? Like, and I'm going to school and I'm talking to like my teachers and I'm going to the priest and I'm like in confession and being like, and he's like, it's all evil. Everything's evil. And then they're like, oh, it's also in your imagination and you're just imagining all of it, and it's the devil, and they're trying to get into you. Like, so it adds this thing of like when you're a kid, you're already scared out of your mind, and then they're taking ideas and they're planting them like, oh, it's Satan himself coming for you.
They twist it into something.
And then.
Yeah.
But then you start seeing
it's like metaphysical balloon animals. Like
and so you but like the time that like really like broke me, like in the sense that like I was like, all right, this world is not black and white. What they're telling me, they have no idea what they're telling me. It's sad to say, but I saw like a toddler. And I was like, you're telling me that's evil? You're telling me I see a spirit of a lost child, and that's like... I
thought you just meant like a random toddler on the street. Yeah. I saw a random toddler on the street. You can't tell me that that's black and white.
That's evil. That's pure evil.
He's my best friend. His name's Carl. Because have you ever met a 3-year-old named Carl? No. Have you ever met an old guy named Carl? Yes. Weird, right? Weird. How do they not exist until they're just old men? I don't understand it.
I was going to be named Earl.
Thank
crying
the
out loud.
goddess.
My mother like told my dad, she's like, hell no, my son will not be named.
So here's a kind of paranormal, but kind of Christian-y slant. My mom and dad were together for about 8 or 9 years until they had me. And I always wondered, like, in early teens, like, that's a long time. And later in life, I found out that my mom actually had a miscarriage before me and after me. Mm. And so automatically, like, there we go. There's existential dread. Like, oh, I'm 1 out of 3. Like, I could have been one of the other 2 that didn't ever existed, and now it's me. So there's that whole thing.
Congratulations on winning that lottery.
Thank you. Here's another aspect of it. My grandmother used to read. I found this out. She used to read tarot years ago, but stopped when she gave a reading for her friend and said, don't go to this thing. And she did, and her friend got in a car accident. She lived. She was okay, but she was like, it just freaked her out so much she didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
But she's still eerily intuitive. And the more I've become known for it, the more and more she's been like open and out about like, oh yeah, I did this. I called this. And so she woke up one morning and called my mom. She's like, Trudy, I had a dream. I had a dream that you're going to have a baby boy in December and you and Steve are going to name him David. And my mom was like, Mom, that's dumb. Steve's cousin's name is David. We can't have 2 Davids with the same last name in the family. It'll be confusing. What if he wants to have a son named Dave? Like, no. Well, my mom got pregnant that year in 86, but had the miscarriage. And then my aunt had my cousin in December of 86. So even my grandma's kind of like, oh, maybe it must have been the wrong daughter or something.
Just off by a little bit.
Well, hang on. My mom never told my dad this story. They get pregnant with me the next year, and I was born December 4th the following year. And I was a C-section, so they had to put my mom under. And when she's coming out of it, my dad's like, honey, the baby's here. It's a boy. He's great. He's beautiful.
Yeah.
Coming out of it. And I'm still beautiful. Still am. And my dad goes, oh, and I named him. And my mom's like, what? Like, she sobered up quick. Like, you named him without me? No. And she says, and my dad says, yeah, I named him Joseph David.
Okay.
So, yeah. And here I am. My grandma's she's made other long shot predictions. Some of them have worked out. Some of them not so much. But yeah, and again, if that's a lucky guess, that's still an amazing lucky guess. I can't diminish that.
Definitely sounds like it's a hereditary gift, though. Like,
yeah, I think so. I think it's more intuitive and everything else, and which is funny because my mom is not intuitive. She's super analytical and super all this other stuff. She always used to call herself Mama Columbo after the TV detective Columbo. Because she would always try to psychoanalyze stuff, but it would just make her be way off. Like I once got in trouble for something I didn't do because of one little, we won't go into it. This isn't therapy hour, but like to the point where even my dad was like, Joe, what happened? I told him what happened and I presented him with the evidence of what happened, which I tried to show to my mom and she didn't buy it. She thought I was bullshitting to try and get out of being in trouble. And my dad was like, okay, I'll talk to your mom. And I was no longer in trouble the next day. But still, like that's the level of like just how intuitive she is with this stuff. They also got, more conservative. It's weird too. This is the other weird thing with parents. My parents were like bikers in the early 80s. And then they found Jesus and sent me to a Baptist school. It's like, why couldn't have I had like the cool, weird biker parents? Like I look at old photos of them. I'm like, did you have to find Jesus? Really?
Or something like that.
Really? I want to ride that Harley around. Are you kidding?
Haven't you ever seen Bob's Burgers? They have the
yes.
But his name is Mudflap.
So fun fact. There is an episode of Bob's Burgers where a magic convention comes to town. Mm-hmm. And there's a magician that comes in who is very heavily modeled after my good friend Paul Draper out of Las Vegas and Salt Lake City. Like if you look at a photo of him and a photo of that guy, it's like, oh yeah. And he did some research and turns out, those people they were at a performance he was at.
I fucking love Bob's Burgers.
That's so cool.
Yeah. That shows genius.
I'm Linda. I'm totally Linda.
Yeah, you really are.
He's totally Bob. He's totally a Bob. But like going back to like the intuition and stuff like that, it's like it's difficult because you have all these different predictions and stuff, and I still have it to this day where like I'll be like, oh, this is how something's gonna play out, and I will tell like a family member, I see how this is gonna play out. This person's gonna do this person's gonna do this, and this is gonna be the end result, and they go, Lauren's doing her shit. They've seen it, and then this shit comes to fruition. It plays out exactly, and I'm like, so, and they go,
called it.
Yeah, when I like when I call things and then you're
that's
like
different. I just don't like admitting you're right at times.
You're not right.
That's a couple things.
I'm pretty sure I'm right. Shit.
Yeah, that's a couple thing.
That's not an intuitive thing.
Lindsay and I are like that as well. There are moments where it's like, you're being too right now. Stop it.
And then I'll go, Amanda, back me up.
And I'm just like, no, I'm a head out.
Moonwalk. Like new girl. I'm gonna awkwardly moonwalk out of here. Like,
so much.
You started watching that show.
Yeah.
We got what, 2 seasons in?
Oh yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But like, as far as like the intuition and like the hereditary of it goes.
Yep.
Words. What are they?
Who knows?
I think everyone has these abilities. I think with certain people, like being around it kind of like triggers it. So it might be a little bit stronger in some, but that's not necessarily that like other people can't build up to that. Mm-hmm. So I just odd one out, man. Completely odd one out.
I mean, I can say that, and I'm saying this with love, Lauren.
Spooky Boy and the Spirit Sisters. We're down a Spirit Sister because I murdered her.
You triggered.
She's a real Spirit Sister now.
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, you triggered my intuition and my gift. So, like, I'm noticing a lot of my stuff is starting to align a lot with you.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the other thing, too. Like, it was definitely dampened when I was in my school environment just because.
Yeah.
It wasn't allowed, but like, there was still the weirdness of it. Like I thought I was a weird kid. Like there was one other guy in my school who, and this was like the big naughty thing for us. He had bootlegged VHS recordings of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yes.
Oh.
And some of those movies, those old B movies can get pretty risque.
Oh,
so it wasn't so much that it was Mr. Science Theater 3000. It's that like we were like, we had these videos like, oh, careful, make sure, you don't watch it with your parents and stuff. It's like, yeah, I know. So we had to keep it like on the down low and like we were like, moving around like illicit materials and stuff. It's like, nope, it was a guy with robots watching shitty movies. Mm-hmm. Like that was it. But again, like the other thing too is like I see so many if there is, just as industries, and I see this a lot in a lot of paranormal TV shows with the hosts and the investigators. We won't name names, but the Scooby Doo bro type shows, as I like to call them. And
I'm doing what I can to keep my mouth shut right now.
Yeah.
that's fine. That's fine. We don't need to say names.
We don't need.
A, they don't need to
know.
publicity. B, we all know who we're talking about. And C, we don't know who we're talking about. But anyway, it's like they're trying, and this happens with a lot of people in the magic industry as well. It's like they're trying to be the least likable versions of themselves. Mm-hmm. And if the point of this is to be our most authentic weirdo selves, like that's the whole point. It's like, and the more, like I have found, like whenever I feel like, oh, there's something, like there are some stuff that I find work best, as I said earlier, for a corporate environment versus a private party environment versus a more intuitive environment, all that stuff. But at the same time, the fact that I'm even going into companies and saying, hey, I'm going to read your guests' minds and interpret their dreams for a half hour after dinner and before awards is fucking weird. Yep. It's weird.
Yes.
Like, it's still, like, yes, it's still, if my work is Coke, it's definitely the diet version of what I'm doing. For
How did you get in that?
Well, oh, yeah, exactly. Oh, you both had the psychic.
Yeah. No, but it was like, my question is like, how did that start for you? Like, how did just going from private shows
to like a corporate thing? Like,
hey, here's LinkedIn. Like
I've worked for companies that are corporate, and I don't tell them about this shit. The weird person always manages to find me and goes, "Hey, Lauren, can you tell me about this really weird fucking thing that happened? Like, I have psychic written on my fucking forehead." Like, but
yeah, sure.
Go into the work environment. I'm like, hi. This is what I do.
This? I feel like this is exactly what you do.
That is exactly what you do. You go in and be like, I'm Lauren and I'm here.
Exactly.
Did that at Target.
Now I do that, but I didn't do that before.
In relation to Austin's question, so I'm going to answer this the way, because I've talked on a lot of like entertainment podcasts, and I find myself very lucky in that I'm into all this weird stuff, but at the same time, like I am a full-time creative commercial artist. It is my job to create art, to be exactly in many ways. So I find myself very, very lucky in that regard. So that said, I'm going to shift slightly into like my businessy, for example, showbiz type talk with this. So when it started, I performed at restaurants. I performed at parties. I did street performing at Six Flags Great America for a number of years. And people would see me there, and then they would hire me for their other events. And I noticed the more I like left behind like more traditional magic tricks that anyone could do and started focusing more on the stuff that fit me and was me. Like it was like that Bill Watterson thing, the guy from Calvin and Hobbes. The more personal you make it, ironically, the more universal it is for people.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I did an event at the McHenry County Country Club. It was for a local company. I won't say the name of the company, but it was there. And it was one of my early like stand-up shows for a whole group. And I had done a piece of mind reading in it. And a woman came up to me after the show, and there was mind reading, and then there was psychometry. People, and that was fun for corporate because people would seal their objects in envelopes. So I didn't know what we would get until I took it out of the envelope in front of everyone, and I would give the reading on it and then try and give it back to the right person in the room. So there was an entertainment aspect of it, but there was the reading aspect.
A letter of embezzlement? What?
Yes, exactly. We can go off on a whole tangent of the weird shit I've gotten in those envelopes. Anyway, but I did like a piece of mind reading before that, and then did that for the rest of the show. And a woman came up to me, and I mostly just did because I didn't have to bring anything for that show because they don't want me to walk around and then do a show. It's like, well, I don't want to like leave a bunch of props over here. I'll just do that. And a woman came up to me and said, "Oh my God, after you read my mind, I saw you each time leave your body and touch the forehead of the person whose object it belonged to and then gave it back to that person." And I was like, I think I was definitely doing that in a creative way, not in a physical way, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. but she still saw it. And I was like, oh, there's still, even at this Christmas corporate party, there's still a level of weirdness here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And as the more time progressed, for lack of a better term, my art form got weirder and weirder. It became more about the audience. And then when I started doing shows at the Dole Mansion in Crystal Lake, where people were coming to see me in a haunted location, you know, on the second floor, and there's all this weird stuff in the studio and a creepy tree painted on the wall from the artist before me, people were ready for something more strange. And that really became so successful. I didn't have to keep chasing as many of the corporate events that I needed in order to make a living. I could just make a living doing the weirdo 13-person show that people would come see, which also, ironically, the weirder thing was the more attractive commercial thing that people wanted to come see and kept coming back to.
Right.
So as a result of that, since I didn't have to do as much corporate work, I got to hone that act a bit more and then just flat out charge more because I wasn't doing as much of them. I didn't want to do as much of them. And if I did take a night off from the show, it's like, okay, if I take the night off from the Dole Mansion, I know I'm losing at least this much money. Mm-hmm. So I need to be charging double this at least at a bare minimum in order to make it worth it. Otherwise, you know, what's the point? I can do it here. And as a result of that, so I've never, there's a lot of corporate entertainers who, and there's actually a high amount of corporate mentalists and mind readers. There's a shockingly high amount all over the world. And it's an amazing and incredible industry. But a lot of those people have to constantly do mailings, have unique selling points, do this, make sure their act is extra this, and make sure it's that, and incorporate the company message. And all. And I don't do any of that. I make a nice basic living doing creepy shows at the Dole Mansion and Maxwell. And then even when people yes, but when people see me there and then the corporate work comes to me, I happily accept it. I still have the video testimonials and everything else, but again, I'm not. And the other thing too, if they're looking for a magician, a mind reader, a psychic entertainer, whatever, those are the gigs that I normally don't get because I'm usually not the cheapest and people looking for just anyone. They're usually just price shopping. So it's not going to be me. Yeah. But the ones who are calling specifically for me, I book 9 out of 10 of those. So it balances it out. And so, yeah, so like the upside, it's very similar to stand-up comedy. Like there are some comedians who would say, what, you got that comedian at your corporate event? But if that corporate event finds that style of dirty humor hilarious, or if it's, whatever, like it can still work. And comedians will sometimes have a corporate act and a non-corporate act and nightclub act and all that stuff. Even like one of the filthiest comedians ever, insult comedians, Don Rickles, still did corporate work, but they knew when they were booking it that Don Rickles was going to make fun of them. He knew to, keep it corporate, but at the same time, really give it to them because they still booked them. Yeah. So my corporate shows I pull out a crystal ball at the end of that show, so that's as weird as those go. But even with working on the virtual show, most of what you saw is still very much what I do in corporate shows. The first half, the only real difference is when we get to the tarot cards. I have a deck of ESP cards like from Ghostbusters, and I say to someone, it's your choice. We can test your intuition scientifically or metaphysically. Scientifically uses these ESP cards, metaphysically uses these tarot cards. Which do you want to decide? And I put it on them. So if someone is going to complain to the higher ups that, there were tarot cards in the corporate show, well, the other person picked that. It's on Susan from accounting. It's not on me.
Fucking Susan from accounting.
Yeah, fucking Susan. Exactly. So there is that aspect as well. And the other thing too, corporate can get so monotonous. I think anything strange and unusual, and the other thing too is this is the way I kind of see it. When I'm going to a corporate event, I see myself as a guest in someone's home. I don't hammer a nail in my nose. I don't bring the Ouija board with. I don't, tell the ghost story. I just say, hey, think of your PIN code, unlock your phone. Hey, think of a dream. Here's what the dream is and here's what it means. Hey, it's very much all about them. In many ways, a lot of my shows are about the audience more so than me. But even so, like it's a bit more, I guess you could say, like cut and dry, a little bit more
so is it true?
Of the moment?
Is it true? I know there was a show you did where you guessed someone's PIN code, and weren't you contacted by like the authorities after that? Like,
yes.
Tell us about that.
So this is actually a perfect lead in for that, in many ways, and I'll go into this. There's a couple layers to the story. So I just on a whim guessed someone's PIN code on a dare at like a bar. It's probably Casey's Cabin or somewhere. Like I didn't always work haunted mansions. I used to just work any dive bar that would give me $100. So I was somewhere. Someone was like, "Oh, well, if you guessed that name, can you guess like someone's PIN code?" So I then think of each progressive digit and typed it in, and I got it right. Cool. Didn't think I'd keep doing it. I was like, okay, whatever. And then I'm in the radio show on 95 Will Rock, and they have a text feed coming in on one of the screens. And someone texts in, oh my God, this guy guessed my iPhone code at this bar a couple weeks ago. And the hosts were like, can you do that with Emily's phone? And they handed me Emily's phone. So I took out my phone and hit record, and we filmed it. And I got it right. I typed in the digits, and I have them think of each digit one at a time and type it in. And so there's that. And then this was to promote the 95 Will Rock Sweetest Day event, which is happening at the Holiday Inn in Gurnee. And after that show, people all had heard me on the air. So they were just coming up to me with their phones like, can you guess my iPhone code? Can you guess? So like within a week, I had unlocked close to 100 phones. I wasn't right with all of them, but it was like quickly becoming like pretty second nature. The downside with it, okay, so let's say, here's a good example. Let's say someone's thinking of a name and the name is Carly. And I get the name Carla. Or like in the Zoom show, I have people pick words out of books. Let's say the word is outside and I get the word inside. Most people are going to go, wow, that was really close. You were right there, like they get that. Mm-hmm. Let's say I get 2 digits reverse in a PIN code, or I'm off by one of the digits. It's a 5 when it should be a 6. If I type that into the phone, that phone either opens or doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit more like horseshoes and hand grenades. So even when I'm close, it still doesn't feel like completed, So it is like a more high stress, high risk thing for me and everything. So anyway, long story short, next time I go on the radio, that show, they replay the clip and we're talking about it, and also they get a call. Calls from a Washington, D.C. area code because it says the phone number in Washington, D.C. We answer it. Hi, my name's Peggy. I'm calling from the Pentagon.
Oops.
What? Peggy, are you listening to all of our conversations? The host wisecracked. He's like, no, I grew up in Gurnee and I listen to Will Rock every day. I stream it on my computer. I actually got special permission to have my headphones in at my desk so I can hear you guys every morning. I've lived here for the last 7 years and I've listened to you every morning, even though I live out here in DC. Like, oh, great. She's like, yeah, I want to talk to the mind reader guy. Okay, Peggy, I can hear you.
Peggy Joe from the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Go ahead.
She's like, hey, do you need to be in the same room to do that iPhone code thing? Context. I don't know if you remember this, but a couple of years ago, there was like 3.5 weeks straight where the FBI and Apple were in the news every single day about the controversy of whether or not they should unlock a terrorist cell's iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah, she called me in the middle of that. That's when this is happening.
Oh.
Yeah. All of you. It's like, I was like, oh, Austin Z. Yeah. So I'm just thinking, well, what do I do? Because are there going to be white vans waiting for me? So I had her make up a code, on a whim. Because I was like, well, let's go through this, use an old code or add up, I had her add up like her birth year with an old address or something, to make up a code. And because the other thing too is when I did it the first time, I just, the host was holding the phone. I said, think of the first digit. I just typed in a number. Tell everyone, was that right? Yes. Type it in. And then we brought the camera over so you could see me type in the last digit to see if it opened or not. And it did. And that video got spread around and everything else as well. But again, so there's no way to do that in that case. So I was like, okay. Yeah. And there was a way for me to reveal the correct code without outing the person's code. And there's no way to do that, over the phone in this environment. So I make up a code and I got it. I nailed it. I think I was off by like one. No, I think I was almost off by 1 or 2 digits, but like I got it. She freaks out. The hosts freak out, and they keep saying, "Oh my God, Joe Diamond hacked the Pentagon. Joe Diamond hacked the Pentagon. Joe Diamond hacked the Pentagon." And again, I'm just thinking, okay, the white fans are going to be there for me when I. Well, I'm like, well, they had just installed the 3 cameras to film all the shows, and I was doing my paranormal show at the time. So I'm like, oh God. When I come in on Sunday, I'm going to pull the audio not just for my show, but from this show. This is career defining. I guessed a PIN code from someone in the Pentagon. Are you kidding? Oh my God. Perfect. Hand on the Bible. I show up Sunday evening. I go in the office. I click on the archives, type in my password, go to the archives, go to the 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock hour. And it's missing from the archives.
Someone got a phone call and said,
There is no, I asked them about it. They're like, we didn't touch it. Like, we just can't find it. So I was like, is there a backup? Is there something? Is there anything? So even though thousands heard this live, and I have thousands of live witnesses, unfortunately, I don't have video evidence of it.
Oh.
But I have thousands of witnesses who saw it live.
I'm on the FBI's payroll, I'm the FBI mind reader.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No Diamond, FBI.
But again, do I want to, it wouldn't be the fun cases. It would be, again, like the Crystal Lake missing kid case and everything.
Yeah.
So, but the whole thing with like the guessing of the PIN code and everything.
Realistic expectations on things.
Sure, but I like doing PIN codes too because it's like it's just naughty and dangerous enough without truly compromising someone's security.
Right.
Like it's right on that. Like for example, when I did like shows in burlesque clubs in Chicago, I would sometimes for men and women guess the colors of people's underwear. With their consent, I would say, do I have permission to do this? Yeah. And if they said no, I wouldn't do it. And I feel like that's, again, just enough. I'm not asking, what's their most embarrassing sexual experience or what's their favorite sex position,
You're not asking size. You're not asking shape or crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty tame. It's on the edge and that's what I like about PIN codes with that kind of thing. So, that's kind of a perfect transition. Do you want to wrap up? Do you want to try something with a PIN code?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Amanda, do you have your calculator or a smartphone with a calculator nearby?
Yes, I do.
All right, perfect. Could you open up your calculator real quick?
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And clear it out just so you can show it on screen real quick. Now, again, I'm not going to do this with your real PIN code because, again, you'd have to change it and it's on the internet and all this other stuff. So what we'll do is just like I did with the woman on the Pentagon, we'll make up a PIN code, but we'll still make it all based around you and elements of your life. Okay? So for starters, just type in your birth year, your 4-digit birth year. So 19, whatever, 2000, whatever. I just saw Lauren peek over. I know you probably know her birth year, but still keep it close to the vest because there's going to be some private stuff. The reason I start off with a birth year is because this is the most common 4-digit code for people. But it's not super secure because, like, you usually have 10 guesses. And you can usually guesstimate someone's age within about 10 years. So
we're at that point where we know everything about each other. So
that too. So let's take this. Well, let's make this even more private then. Hit plus for me, Amanda. Hit plus and think of a special year. A year that has some meaning to you, like in the last decade or so. It can be a year you all met. It could be the year you got a job, a year someone was born. And type in that number as a 4-digit code.
You're good to put any of that shit in.
Yeah. But this is a code that she's picking right now is what I'm saying. So if I did look up, I don't know I think we're friends on Facebook. So even if I did look up your birthday, I didn't. But even if I did, it wouldn't help me now.
Well, this wasn't planned. This is all.
Yeah, this wasn't planned exactly.
This is completely improvised.
Yes, exactly. Did you hit plus again, Amanda?
And now.
Okay, now you did. Okay, you still could have. We're already into March, but have you celebrated your birthday already? Don't tell me when it is, but just have you celebrated your birthday? You haven't. Okay, now type in how old you'll be on your next birthday. It's not how old you are now, but how old you'll be on the next birthday, and hit equals. Okay, so again, we're probably different ages, to have different special years, all that stuff. But let's add one more layer of uniqueness to that number you have in front of you.
Okay.
If I were doing this, I would have picked for my special year, I would have picked 2015. That was the year I met my wife, 2015. So 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. Just yes or no, was your special year 6 years ago, Amanda? No. Okay. Hit plus once more.
Okay.
And type in how many years it's been since your special year. So see, if I were doing this right now, we'd be adding 6 to that number.
Thank God, Amanda.
If you would be doing this, you'd be picking a different number, So you've got a completely random 4 or 5-digit number in front of you now, right?
Yes.
And it's totally based around you and your life. Could you hold it literally up to your chest like this so that way they can't see it? And I need you to lean in a little bit more to the camera. And here's what I need you to do for this. Look at the code and just for right now, count to 10. But here's the thing. When you get to 10, don't say 10 because there's no 10 on a keypad. Just say 0. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Okay?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do I need to do this out loud?
Yeah, do it out loud for right now.
Remember, we're on a podcast. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the mind reader, not us.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0.
Ooh, a lot of emphasis on the 0. I'm gonna say this is 4 digits, not 5. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I'm gonna say, here's the thing. I was kind of listening to the tone of your voice, and I only picked up on a tell 3 times rather than 4. So what that means to me is that one of the digits repeats. Is that correct as well?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I'll tell you what. Imagine you can mix up all the digits and then choose a random digit out of the middle. Don't say it. Oh, this is interesting. You started with 1 digit, then went to another. Yes? Mm-hmm. I think. Did you go from, when they're in order, I think you went from the second in, second in to the end. Those are the ones you were bouncing back and forth from, right?
Yes.
And you started, I'm not picking up on the number you started with, but I think you switched to the 2 finally, yes?
Yes.
I think I got this.
Okay.
I got this.
I swear.
Now again, don't hate me if I get these out of order, but I'm gonna go with this. Could you close your eyes for a moment, Amanda?
Yes.
Close your eyes. Okay. Now, just to be clear, Lauren and Austin, you have not seen the code she just made up.
Not at all.
Okay, because I typed something into my calculator. Don't say it. Amanda can watch the video back later. I'm going to show you the code I just typed in before we go any further. Again, I might have some of the digits reversed. I'm hoping this is at least close. You can open your eyes, Amanda. And for the first time, now again, we didn't know we were going to do this. You just made up a code right now based around events, based solely on you and your life. You made up a 4-digit code. But even if that was the case, if I could do this with a random code with any 4 digits, it makes sense that I'd be able to do this with your actual code. Do you have like a 4 or 6-digit code on like your phone?
Yeah.
Credit card? Like a 4-digit PIN code on your credit card or debit card?
On my debit card? Yeah, I have
Your
that.
debit card, yeah. How about emails? Like you have to use the 4-digit code to open your emails. So there's really only 4 digits that protect people like you from people like me. Moment of truth. Read out loud the random 4-digit code that you created based solely on you and your life.
All right. 4, 0, 4, 2.
Damn.
Yes.
Oh my god! What is it? Do you have like Black Phillip in your corner that we can't see?
Black Phillip, horns are out his head.
For our listeners, Lauren just shat her pants.
All right, let's do it again. Austin, think of your real code. No, I'm kidding.
I was like,
We'll quit while we're ahead with that.
Lauren is broken.
She looks frozen. You guys are moving, and she just looks frozen.
Yeah, that's as close as a mind reading as I could think we can get in today's society.
Yeah.
Yep.
Outside of like what you see in media, you know, where they're just like,
Yeah.
oh yes, it's like, damn.
Yeah.
Lauren, Lauren, you've experienced things. You broken? Don't try to wrap.
And it gets weirder at Parapsychology every Friday at 8 p.m. Central. Again, use promo code Spooky Spirits for $15 off your ticket. It's gonna get weirder.
Right.
Hi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for breaking Lauren.
Yeah, that's my job. I appreciate it.
I think this is worse than quantum mindfuck. Like,
can that be the pull quote? Can that be the pull quote I use? This is worse than quantum mindfuck. Joe Diamond is worse than quantum mindfuck.
yeah,
As long as you're like, if you want to know what that is, Spooky Boy and the Spirit Sisters, check them out.
Season 2, episode 1.
Perfect. I'll take it.
Oh my god,
I'll take it.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was a blast.
Like, and if you want to, you can go ahead and plug all your stuff in here.
Yeah, at Joe Diamond Live on Instagram, JoeDiamondLive.com. I have just started, for those of you on Instagram, I have started doing, I know I'm so up with the time, I just started doing Reels because I hate doing TikTok, but I've got some cool stuff that I've been working on that, again, will work virtually. Some of it is more psychological based. Some of it is, well, I don't even want to spoil it. I will tip this. I've got 2 videos that will be released the week of April Fool's Day, including how to make the Fool card in a deck of tarot cards look like it's floating. It's a really cool, fun, part optical illusion, part magic trick, part prank. It's the perfect thing to freak out someone like across the dinner table. I used to do it for trick-or-treaters when they came to my door for Halloween. I used to do it to freak them out. It's really cool. It's a really fun thing. So that'll be on my Instagram as well. Again, I'm at Joe Diamond Live for everything. If someone has any questions about what I do or anything, my email, joe@joediamondlive.com. I used to say to everyone, send me a friend request on Facebook, but I'm at like the 5,000 friend limit. So just shoot me a friend request and message me, and I'll let go of some lame people to make
Okay.
room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I tried to accept your friend request, and it's like, he's reached his 5,000 limit. I was like, damn, all right. I was like, I didn't know there was a limit.
Denied.
I didn't either. So if it takes a while for me to respond, and also if Facebook Messenger is screwed up, stuff gets sent into like, spam folders, and it's like in like the dark corners of the app. Honestly, like, so if I don't respond to people on Messenger or something like that, I apologize. Instagram's guilty of it too. If you email it to me, I check my spam religiously with email. I'll find your email in between a bunch of question marks and mail enhancements. If I see something in there that just says like paranormal question, I'll click on it,
Paranormal
even if it's in there.
penis on it.
Yes. Hashtag paranormal penis. Anyway, so if anyone has any questions about the show, and again, if anyone watching or listening is an essential worker or has an essential worker in their family, joe@joediamondlive.com. You can look at the schedule, but it's Fridays at 8:00 Central Time. Just let me know the date you want to come, and I will send you the login link as long as you send me a photo of you or the essential worker in uniform for that. And if someone wants to donate a ticket when they check out at joediamondlife.com/Zoom, again, that's widely appreciated as well.
And everything will be linked and mentioned and all that stuff in our episode notes.
Yep.
Joe, we can't thank you enough. We hopefully
Lauren, thank you. Amanda, thank you. Austin, thank you.
Hopefully you'll be back.
Thank you.
Yeah,
hopefully.
You
You wanna do this again? I mean, I ain't busy. Well, that's the other thing too with Zoom shows. Like I always feel weird when someone does want to like chat online or something. It's like, oh no, I'm busy. I got a gig, and it's like at 2 PM. It's like it's 4 London. It's 8:00 over there. I swear. It's so there are like weird random times a day. Like my one friend had to get up at like 4 AM for a virtual gig in India, and he's in San Francisco. Yeah. So like the cool thing with virtual gigs is like, we are kind of busy at random weird times, but in all seriousness, if you want to do this again, we'll figure it out. I would love to come back anytime. This was a total blast.
We've got ideas.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes.
All right.
Thank you so much. And again, this episode is going to be on YouTube. You guys can watch everything happen and replay.
Yep.
And then naturally, it's going to be up on our website, Buzzsprout, all podcasting platforms that we have. And I know we plug this every time. Please follow, subscribe, leave us a review. If you loved this episode with Joe, let us know, because we will definitely have more guest speakers on.
And if you hated the episode, leave a 5-star review. There's no reason we should all be disappointed.
Exactly.
That's right.
We're going to use that.
So and I am no joke. I am subscribing on YouTube right now. So,
Awesome. And thank
literally.
you. Boy, we are all caught up with that.
Yes.
So you can listen or you can read along with closed captioning to be inclusive of all of our viewers or listeners.
Yes.
And with that, I think that's all we have.
Yeah.
Stay spooky, folks.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.